Hi everyone, I'm Sine.
And I'm Cleone.
And this is the Aesthetic Perspective.
We're super excited to be launching this. I think this has been a long time coming. I think we are very excited to what we'll actually be delving into in this industry, the industry that we've both been in for quite some time now. Without further ado, let's actually just jump straight into it. I actually ended up going into the industry before I even went to study it.
When I started, I didn't even know this was actually something you could study. Like, what is somatology? Where does it come from?
One of our biggest goals with this podcast would also be to equip the current somatologist or being employees in the actual aesthetic industry to be in the first place a better version of yourself in this industry.
Please stay a little longer so we can get to the convincing part. Tell us a bit how you got in the industry, Cleo.
Sune, so I think when it comes to this industry, I want to be pretty vulnerable from the start. I have to say I never imagined myself as a high school student or as a primary school student actually wanting to go into this industry. To be very honest, I actually wanted to be a vet, which is
I think
something
it suits your personality so well.
But one thing led to another and things didn't work out. So I actually ended up going into the industry before I even went to study it. I started playing around at like the local salon, I want to almost say. I started doing some independent sales. I think that's the first time that I actually realized, okay, I actually do like sales quite a lot.
Yes.
But I think I really started loving it even before I went to study it. I went to do a 3-year diploma and here I am loving it. I learned to love it. But I think it's an industry that you can also learn to love, like I just mentioned. I know your story is a little bit different.
Yes.
I always find your story a little bit more inspirational. I think it's so cool. So would you mind unpacking how you got into the industry as well?
Absolutely. I actually find, obviously because I know you like on a personal level, your story to me is actually quite inspirational. So it's always nice, but we'll definitely dive deeper in that, I think, as our journey progresses. Because I think everyone could relate to you as well. I think when I started, I didn't even know this was actually something you could study. Like, what is somatology? Where does it come from? What is it even? So I think I've always wanted to go more into the medical side of things. And, when you get to matric, you feel a bit confused. You feel a bit uncertain of, your next steps in life. And, I almost want to say that I think the industry chose me. And in my first year of study, I hated every minute of it. It was terrible. And then, as you mentioned, I kind of fell in love with it. I think I found my purpose. I've always been someone, I want to do something for someone else. I want to serve them with my hands. And I think this industry kind of enabled me to do that. So, I think for obviously for our viewers, Cleo was my mentor back in the day when we were studying. So that's quite a special moment to have.
I obviously did an amazing job.
The absolute best.
I think what stood out for me in what you just said, obviously we all learn to love the industry. But I think one of our biggest goals with this podcast would also be to equip the current somatologist or being employees in the actual aesthetic industry to be in the first place a better version of yourself in this industry.
Absolutely.
It is one of the more difficult industries to be in, and I think that's something that we'll definitely unpack as well as our our journeys and how we actually got here. We'll definitely go into a little bit more detail. But Sine, what I really wanted to go into is when you went to study somatology, what is it that actually caught your eye about this? And the reason I'm going into this is there's a lot of girls, there's a lot of people who are seeing this online maybe, and it looks maybe like one thing, but when you go into it, it's a little bit different. So the real goal with this session or with this episode would also be to equip someone who wants to go into somatology, they want to go and study it, but they don't really know if they're making the right choice. So would you mind unpacking that a little bit for us?
Yes, absolutely. I think there are so many variations to what you could do in the industry, and it's almost like it looks so glamorous. It looks like it's portrayed sometimes as something different to what it really is. I think to me, when I actually went for the open day, it was such a funny story. So they made it look like it's very medically orientated from the beginning, which, as you all know, it's actually not when you're just starting off. Hence, I was a bit displeased with my choice. But I think going into it, it's almost like you have to really realize that we're working in a people industry, and you have to, you know, make it your own in a sense. I think if you can find something within the industry that you really, really love, there's always something we draw to. And I think, in my case, it was more the medical setup, and my first job was with a dermatologist. And I think that was very fulfilling once I realized I can still achieve a lot within the industry. Because I think while you're studying, you feel super limited. You know, your options seem like you can only work at a salon for the rest of your life. And it's quite daunting, because you and me both, we're quite ambitious. So we always want more. And I think settling for, you know, just a salon job in my personal life wasn't something I was ready for. So it was quite daunting. But I think it's so amazing that we have so many options and so many avenues to explore.
I think, and what I really liked about what you were saying is there's obviously a lot of exposure that you get in this course.
Yes.
So one of the biggest reasons that I actually went into it is because I saw the different subjects that you could actually that you had in when you were studying, the different educational or the different education that you get while you're actually doing this. I mean, we had nutrition, obviously, we had biotics, which is exercise science. I think this is quite a broad course if you are not sure what you want to do. And I think that's where my story really came in, because I wasn't 100% sure that this is actually what I wanted to do.
Absolutely.
I think a year in, I was exactly the same as yourself. I was like, oh,
what the hell is happening?
What just happened?
Yes.
But I think for me, it's a little bit of a shock as well when you go from studying to actually into the industry and going into working. Because I actually had someone commented on one of my posts one day, and she said, I made a post about somatology and the myths about somatology. And she said that, you know, the exploitation that somatologists actually experience while being in this industry is actually horrible.
Absolutely.
And that's something that she wished someone told her before she actually went and studied this.
Yes, I think so many times you have this impression of what the industry is going to be like. I always say, you know, if we compare our industry to something like a lawyer, you know, lawyer almost sees like the ugly of the world. And with us, we glamorize it. We see the beauty of everything. But when you're actually actively working in the industry, that's when you find all the flaws.
Absolutely. And for me, I would say that I love the people.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna be so honest here. I love the people more than I actually love. I was about a year into the industry when I realized I don't think I'm the best therapist. I don't think I'm the best somatologist. But when I speak to the clients afterwards, and that relationship that we built, that is something that I really enjoyed. And that brought me to my next step in life, where I really wanted to go into sales. Unfortunately, with the amount of experience that I had, which was almost 2-3 years, I didn't get that opportunity. So I think anyone who wants to go into sales, or they want to go more into training, they want to really, I want to say, investigate other careers in this, because if we're looking at it, it really looks like you can do two things. You can go have your own business, or you can be a therapist, which is actually quite limiting. But I think something that you must also remember is that you can go more into sales education, which is definitely something obviously that found me. I don't want to say I chose it, because I sent my CV out to so many people, to so many places. I ended up actually settling to be a manager at a little bit of a more of a other class salon, but then supernaturally, I want to say, this opportunity came my way, which I will forever be grateful. And now I'm really at a place where, and even with this podcast, we really want to make a valuable change in the industry, and we want to help equip these girls. We want to help equip these somatologists, like we said in the beginning, to be better. Tell me a little bit about, obviously, we just said it gets glamorized.
Yes.
So let's go a little bit into the actual course, just on what was difficult for you when you were studying it. Someone going now, they have this expectation.
Yes.
What would you say was the most difficult for you?
I love this question so much because, you know, when you start, you like, in Afrikaans we say it's the pretpakket. You know, you set yourself up for something that's going to be so casual. It's going to be so much fun. You're just going to be with your friends all the time. And I think the difference from a course, especially the type of course we did, obviously, is the amount of work that goes in. I think we all underestimated it. I feel like I've been having a full-time job since like finishing school. It's quite intensive. So I think in the beginning, obviously for me, it was like realizing that it is a 5-day week. On campus, you're super active. You have your practicals, you have your actual like learning classes, the theoretical part of it. But I think for me, it was just realizing that it will not be a normal university course. You know, you won't have off days. You don't have off time slots. You're really like in it to make it work. So I think that was one of my first realizations I had to cross. And then I think definitely just being open-minded about the course. I think in the beginning, obviously, because we have such a vast variety of subjects that we do, I think it's so important that you are actually open-minded to all of them. I think obviously we all want to learn about the skin and we all want to have like the in-depth understanding of the dermatology part of it. But I think if you explore something like your lifestyle, something like the nutrition, it makes you so much better when you're actually treating your patients. So I think for me, I absolutely loved it.
That's amazing. I think for myself, exactly the same.
Yes.
I think when you're in it, you have to really prepare yourself for a more intense course. It is we both studied at Isaac Carson's Academy, which I am forever grateful for. Something that I don't think a lot of people know is that the year before, I actually took a gap year where I call it my character forming year, yes. Where I just learned to be an adult a little bit. But I actually went to a different academy. I was there for maybe a week, I think, and it just didn't work out.
Yes.
Nothing worked out. The accommodation, there was a lot of things, and I actually ended up saying, no, let me wait till next year. I'm going to take a year for myself. And when I went to ISA, after I actually completed my course, and being in the industry now, I do want to say that now I understand why there was obviously it was a little bit more of an intense course, but also the quality of therapists that do come from them.
It's just next level.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, they tell you in the course, yes,
you will be set apart.
You're going to be the best. You're set apart.
Yes,
and
but you
while
don't feel like the best.
Absolutely. And you're literally busy scrubbing floors.
Yes.
But when you get out into the industry, you see why it was all necessary. Because when I do training now, for instance, with a room full of therapists, I can immediately see which therapists are actually ISA students.
Absolutely. It's just the way like they present themselves, the way they interact with you as the trainer or with you as their colleague, or it's just a different quality of person that comes from ISA.
Absolutely. So I think for myself, it really was just the intensity. Like you said, you have this expectation, and I think that's why we also get frustrated as somatologists in the industry.
Absolutely.
Because people are like, oh, you're this or you're that, or you don't know anything, or you get labeled as the same as someone maybe that did a 6-month course. I think that is probably the most frustrating thing for us in this industry. But when you get into trainings, when you get into clinics, you'll see that most of the doctors, they actually prefer, obviously, the ISA students or the somatology students.
I think because they also value the knowledge we build during those phases, and they see that there is a clear difference between someone that did like a full somatology course, and especially through ISA, compared to someone that just did like a quick online beauty tutorial thing.
Absolutely.
So I think it's really a compliment we can actually share with Isa to say like thank you for those hard years, because it's absolutely made me who I am today. I think I'll forever be grateful for that phase. I think I learned so much about myself, not only in the industry, like my identity within the industry, but I think also like just like the small little skills they teach you, how to take care of yourself, how to present yourself. I think those things actually made me who I am today.
Absolutely. I think that will obviously bring me to my next question. And I almost feel like we have a really good foundation. So if anyone is really interested in studying somatology, a good foundation would be very important.
Absolutely.
But do you mind listing a few? Obviously, you also see a lot of girls being a trainer and a product specialist yourself. Would you mind listing or just going through some things, qualities that you would say a good somatologist needs to have, or maybe some passions that they need to have to actually thrive in this industry? Because like we just said, a lot of people actually go into this industry realizing that this is not for them, or they stay in it, but then actually end up doing damage to the industry, which I see a lot. I know there are negatives, but I think the way we portray ourselves is also very, very important. So do you mind, just from what you've seen, what do you think, what qualities do we need as good somatologists?
Absolutely. I think, similar to you as well, so many of the girls I actually studied with chose a whole different career path afterwards because they just feel like it's not for them. I think we all similar people in the sense that we love people and we want to, have that ability to connect and create relationships. But I also think there does come a difference in your quality or in your personality, even with the different career paths within the industry. For example, like us as trainers or as product specialists, I feel like we possess different qualities compared to a really good therapist. But I think if we blanket those qualities, I absolutely think you have to have great work ethics and you have to be able to actually, put in the hours, work hard. I think that's super important. Then obviously being a people's person. I think our whole industry is based on your connections with people and your ability to actually build those relationships. I think for us, obviously in sales, it's very important, but also as a therapist, so important to establish that connection for your clients to actually come back to you and love you and want to be spoiled by you. And then I also think the way you present yourself to them. I think if you have that pride within you, not in an ugly way, but if you love yourself and you are able to give, I always say like you have to keep your own cup full as well. So if you have the ability to, pour the excess to other people, I think that makes you exceptional.
Absolutely. I think what you just said, super valuable. When we're looking at keeping your own cup full, when I was a therapist and when I just started being a therapist, I used to be very extroverted. I used to actually recharge with people, around people, especially when we were studying. That was my form of filling my own cup. But the more I worked with people, the more that actually went down.
I hear you. People can be super draining.
And in the industry. So I think keeping your own cup full is very important. But also actually making sure that you enjoy this industry and that you love this industry. Absolutely. That's why I would encourage anyone who is they're considering studying this, go and do some shadowing, go and make sure even, with anyone, go and make sure that this is actually something that's going to actually fill your cup.
Yes, absolutely.
Because your career in itself needs to fill your cup.
And we spend so much time within our career. If it doesn't fill you, you will absolutely hate it.
Absolutely. I know that most of it, and I think maybe in our part 2 session, we won't have time today, but in our part 2 session, we will unpack where we are now, what we've experienced now, what we've done already and where we're going. But for maybe someone that maybe they're a little bit hesitant to go into the industry, they don't know if they do have this passion that we're talking about, what would your advice be to those people, to those girls? I think very important for me, whenever someone asks me, do you think this is a good career? Do you think this is a good field to go into? When you go out, or when you get out of your course, out of ISA, what you're going to find is salary expectations are not always great, which is something
especially when you're just starting,
especially when you're just starting. So when it comes to salary and remuneration, it becomes difficult. And then when you don't like what you're doing, this can actually turn into a living hell, I believe.
Absolutely.
I think if you are a somatologist, obviously you've got more opportunities to go and work with the doctors, work more in assisting them and in more reputable clinics, if it makes sense. But back to my question, what would your advice be to someone that's a little bit hesitant to, should I go into this, should I not? Would you say that it might be a good idea to wait a little bit, or would it be a good idea to go and shadow? What would you say?
I definitely would recommend, obviously, continuing this podcast journey with us, because we'll be unpacking all of that for you. But in a more practical way, I definitely suggest not being afraid to ask detailed questions. So kind of find someone, even if you reach out to me or Cleo, or someone in the industry, don't be afraid to ask those intense questions to make sure that this is actually something that will be fulfilling for you. And then I love the idea of shadowing. I think especially when you go shadow at a busier clinic and kind of spot your clinic on Instagram or Google that you find intriguing. I think if you really try go shadow there, it will give you a clear indication of what a day in the life of a somatologist is like. I think it's so important that you have a good understanding. And obviously, when a clinic is busier, we often come across a bit of chaos, and just to see how that chaos makes you feel. Because if you're able to handle that chaos, I think obviously you'll know if it's sustainable for you in the long run. What would you say?
I would definitely say I would really recommend that you don't choose this if you haven't actually done your research. I know a lot of girls who's actually super unhappy, and maybe I can bring a little bit of clarity just on what can you go into. So if you're listening to this and you want to know, but what can I go into? What can I do? Should I study? I don't know if I want to be a therapist. But your options are not as limited as it may seem, obviously. I think definitely make sure that this is for you. So definitely do your research, like you said, and make sure that you have a passion for people. I know girls who literally from the moment they were born, they were like skincare, makeup. And they love that. They already know, obviously, that this is for them. But I want to highlight that I have now seen a lot of people and the directions that they go into. And one of the biggest things, and obviously it's booming now, would be you can go into social media with us as well.
Absolutely.
You can go into blogging. You can go into those kind of things as well, which is super successful.
And I mean, you don't need to have that people personality, basically, because you can still love the industry without working with the people, because it's like a behind the scenes thing.
Absolutely. It's a very versatile industry, even though it seems a little bit limited sometimes. But you can go into that. You can go in, obviously, to your therapy. And when you work with a good doctor, I know therapists who are extremely, extremely happy. They wouldn't trade that for the world, even though they work on Saturdays or the hours are a little bit longer. If you can get a physician or a doctor, or even a good salon owner or business owner that can take care of you, even though it seems rare, as someone with a very good qualification, it is possible for you. And I would like to encourage you to just do your research on your employer as well, obviously, and search, keep on searching.
I think that's one of the most important aspects within the industry is actually the conditions we sometimes have to, struggle through, but we'll definitely touch on that in the future.
Absolutely.
I actually want to ask, since we're speaking about some advice on how to start the course, what was the turning point for you? What was like the, yes, this is what I'm going to do?
Before I actually went to study it?
Yes.
I think, when you just know, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it.
When you know, you know.
I was like, I've always been really passionate about health, actually. There was a time in my life where I didn't care at all.
Okay.
But I've actually grown to really enjoy health. I actually studied exercise science in my gap year. Wow. So I did a bit of fitness. I've always been very passionate on helping women actually be the best version of themselves. And this industry just really, because it's so versatile, it gave me the options. So that's why I was like, okay, let me learn a bit about nutrition, or let me learn a bit about skincare, and then see which direction I want to go into. So for me, what attracted me was the versatility of the course. Having said that, I think I literally just knew. I was like, this is what I need to do. The vet idea out of the window.
Out of the door.
We're going at this. And I have to say, have I not regretted it? I have regretted it.
Yes, I think we all go. But
we have.
I don't even think it's just us. I think everyone goes through a bit of regret somewhere in their career.
Absolutely. But when I look back at what I have experienced now and what I went through, I'm like, this is actually exactly where I need to be. Yes. And if you've got that fire, you've got that passion, then I don't see how this can go wrong for you. So I definitely think, I think that was me. I went into it. I think what became difficult for me was actually after you studied and you go from being a student to actually in a work environment. Yes. And I think in any industry that's very difficult. From going into that gap.
The responsibility is like drastically different.
Absolutely. So I wish just mentally that I was prepped a little bit better for what I'm about to enter in. But hopefully that's also something that we can actually go into in this podcast as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, Cleo. And that was our first session.
I think that was amazing. I think hopefully valuable.
Well.
I hope.
Yes. If you're not yet convinced, please stay a little longer so we can get to the convincing parts. I feel like I want to go back and study again.
Me too. I want to do it all over again. I want to go back. I want to get full marks, which I didn't get in school.
I know. And it's not that difficult if you just commit to it. I always say, I wish I had the drive I have now back then.
100%.
I think I would have been the best student.
And I think if I was as high performing as I was then, as I am now,
yes.
Also something that we can maybe unpack in future episodes.
I can't wait.
But thank you to everyone who listened in today. We will definitely see you for our next part 2. We'll see you soon.
Thank you guys. Bye.